This episode of Off My Shelf contains coarse language and adult conversation. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, my name is Trace James and welcome to Off My Shelf, a podcast about movies that are well off my shelf, where we go through my DVDs and talk about the movies in my collection. In this episode, Julian Spillane is here to talk everything Clerks, as we discuss the whole series so far. So we're going to talk Clerks, Clerks 2, and Clerks Uncensored, the animated show. Welcome!
Hello! Thanks for having me again. I'm back from being Back to the Future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we've passed the future, right?
Oh, God. You're right.
I mean,
anything can happen now. Where's Doc Brown?
We're even past like the Blade Runner future and everything.
We are. So, I can't think of any like upcoming near futures.
That's true. Somebody was saying the future is Star Wars, and I'm like, no, long time ago, galaxy far, far away. We've passed that, obviously, so it doesn't count.
Star Trek is 100 some odd years away from the TOS, from Enterprise.
Yes,
because isn't Enterprise like
21 something?
Yeah, so. Yeah. We still got a century to go before then.
Yeah, and it's after World War III, which is in like 2060 something. So
or next year.
Or next year. It depends. It depends. So yeah, we are in the future.
So a perfect way to transition into this new decade is to talk about something that is firmly affixed in 2 decades prior. Yes. Clerks. I was just saying to Tracy before the podcast started that I don't think I can think of a more Gen X series than Clerks.
Well, it's true. It's very much, the world is putting me down and, everything is wrong and I can't do anything about it. And, oh my God, and pleated pants. Like, it's weird.
And, like, nerd references before nerd references were cool, yes. Thus creating the cult class. Like, I think a lot, I don't want to attribute too much to Kevin Smith because while he's awesome, he's just one creator. But I think Clerks set up a lot of the referential humor and geek like references and made them cool at a time when it wasn't. And yes. I think it allowed people to embrace their inner nerd in ways that probably would have been more societally shunned upon earlier.
Well, I think, in the early 90s specifically, that was the point in time where this whole idea of nostalgia was taking over. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why Clerks hit so hard at that point and why it was accepted is because it hit at that right point where nostalgia and back references and everything, like so much came out in like that early 90s, mid 90s period that was just 98% references to other stuff. Yeah. That whole genre was able to like grow and build. And now we're here making references to something that just make references to other things. It's this weird meta, media society that we're living in right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in preparation for this, I watched Clerks, Clerks 2, and Clerks the Animated Series, / Clerks Uncensored. Mm-hmm. It's funny because I watched the animated series contemporaneously, like right when it came out, and was subsequently immediately canceled. Yeah.
Well, according to the DVD case, only 2 episodes aired.
Yeah, and it wasn't the pilot. It was the first episode that aired was the episode with the flashbacks. So I thought the joke was that there were no episodes to flash back to. Okay. Not that the joke is that they were flashing back to the one episode they had, but either way, it's a funny gag.
Yes.
And then they the other one that aired, I believe, was the lawsuit one where the oh my God, Bear is driving. How can this be? Korean animation studio.
Yeah.
The infamous Judge Reinhold episode.
Yes. Infamous is a strong word because 98% of people don't know it exists. So, I don't know. Sure.
Yeah, I guess maybe we should tell the audience what it is because I'm sure everyone's heard of Clerks and Clerks 2.
Yeah, so, Clerks and Clerks 2, of course, were, in theaters. Clerks was Kevin Smith's first theatrical film that he put out. It debuted at, Sundance, I believe it was. And a couple of other small film festivals, and he got some buzz, and he got enough money to make Mallrats, which got more buzz, which, and he also was friends with a couple of pretty famous people at the time. Yeah. So, he was able to parlay all of that into his directing, writing career that he's got going out there right now. Clerks 2 came much later. Mm-hmm.
After Dogma, it was 2003, 4?
2006.
2006?
Yes.
Wow.
Much later.
Wow.
So that's what, a full 12 years later.
12 years after the first one.
Yeah, after he put out a bunch of his movies, actually. And Clerks Uncensored, I actually think didn't Clerks Uncensored come out before it?
Yeah, Clerks Uncensored came out in the early 2000s. I think it was 2000.
2001, apparently, it says, was the release, which seems weird for 2 episodes. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, where were we going? I was about
to
say
just talking about the history of what the animated series was.
Yes, so the animated series, of course, follows the 2 main characters, Dante and Randall, who work at the Quick Stop. And for some reason, they have an arch nemesis that's voiced by
Alec Baldwin.
Which I did not remember until I started watching it. I was like, that voice is really familiar. Yeah. I think that's Alec Baldwin. It can't be Alec Baldwin. I looked it up. It was Alec Baldwin.
Bryan Cranston also makes a surprise guest appearance, but this was right during the beginning of Malcolm in the Middle. So he was just a name in a list of alphabetized credits. He wasn't an and or a with or
anything like that. Yeah, he wasn't known. He wasn't famous. He wasn't anything at the time. I mean, Malcolm in the Middle started in 2000, so it was just at the same time. And he was just a guy out there looking for work.
Well, he was doing a lot of VO. Bryan Cranston appeared in a lot of anime dubs in the late 80s and early 90s. Mostly like film theatrical stuff. I think he was in Laputa Castle in the Sky, the Miyazaki film. And I think he appeared in Mononoke. But he was just on a rota. People who do.
He was also on Seinfeld. Yeah, he was the dentist who switched to Judaism purely for the joke.
The anti-dentite.
Yes, but he was actually on several episodes. What was his character? I do not want to look it up. What was his character's name? Tim Whatley.
Tim Whatley. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think he was in something like 10 episodes. Like he wasn't like a one-off.
Yeah,
he was in actually quite a few
episodes for a guest. Like there was only Babu Bhatt appeared a bunch of times.
Yes,
Watley appeared a bunch of times, but really there weren't too many other recurring guests.
Well, there was Crazy Joe Davola. Well, that was only 3 episodes though, because that was a season arc thing.
I guess Putty.
Weird. And yes, that's right, because Putty was there, then he left, and then he came back, and he was there for a whole season.
Yeah, Patrick Warburton became a recurring character at that point. But anyway, back to Clerk. Yeah. So, at this point in time, Kevin Smith had really been nailing it. Chasing Amy became his big, you can do a movie that actually is not just references, has some emotion to it. And then followed that up with Dogma, which I still think is particularly interesting because it got heavily protested.
Yes.
And it got lumped in, as a anti-Christian atheistic film. But the comedy wasn't as cheap as that. It was actually a fairly introspective thing. And I think it's because Kevin Smith himself says he's a Catholic. And it was very much his interpretation of what religion means to him. It was a particularly very interesting, weird take on the whole premise.
Well, actually, I don't think Dogma is anti-religion in any way, shape, or form. It's just showing different aspects of the religion that he has grown up with. I mean...
It's also, again, religion as seen through a very heavily Gen X filter.
Exactly, which is, woe is me and can't do anything about it.
And why else would you have Alanis Morissette as God?
That is true. I remember that being one of the biggest issues people had. What do you mean God's a woman? And Alanis Morissette, she's Canadian. I'm like, what?
And Kevin Smith's Canadian fetish continues.
It does. It really, really does. Which I don't actually understand that much, but he just loves everything Canada for some reason.
And so interesting. So the animated series it got produced. It ran. They produced 6 episodes. They aired 2 of them. No network wanted it after that because it was definitely not fit for television in 2000.
No, it wasn't.
It doesn't hold up terribly well, unfortunately. Spoiler alert. I have very fond memories of the animated series, but we're living in a very different time now, and I think some of it is you can see where Paul Dini wrote an episode of the Clerks animated series.
Sorry. Who's Paul Dini?
Paul Dini is the creator and writer of Batman the Animated Series.
No.
Yeah.
I should have known that.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, okay.
He wrote an episode of it, and there's kernels of really good, funny stuff.
Yeah.
But, also 2 of the kids in the hall appear in the Tilt-A-Whirl fair episode, the penultimate.
Oh, yes, I did see that one. Yes, I did. Yeah.
But yeah, it's I don't know. I had fond memories of it. Rewatched it. I got some laughs, but there's just moments of like, oh, I can see why I found that funny
at the time.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think if this show was put out now and it was tweaked a little bit, I could see it finding an audience.
Oh, for sure. I don't think there's anything inherently problematic about Clerks. Like, Randall is supposed to be a boorish idiot guy from New Jersey. You're not supposed to like Randall.
No, you're not.
Like, Randall will throw around ethnic slurs. He'll throw around homophobic slurs. He's not a hate-filled man. He's just a disaffected, he puts up a front because he's actually deeply insecure about everything around him, right?
And himself and his place in the world. And
yeah. Clerks 2, I think, does a fantastic job of holding that up. And I think of the three films, or three entries in the series so far, I think it's the one that has the most interesting narrative progression for the characters. Because Clerks has no narrative progression. It just is what it is, right? It's the slice of life. But Clerks 2 takes the characters on an interesting journey and kind of looks at the underlying bleakness of what it's like to live in small town New Jersey. Like, Newark is a big experience to people in Leonardo, New Jersey.
Yeah. I actually really do agree with you with that, because it's more than... The thing about Clerks 2, it's more than just slice of life, even though it starts off that way, like the first one. Because it shows they've changed position, something's happened, where are they going with this, and something big is actually about to happen. Whereas the last movie, or the first movie, I should say, where even though, Dante's there with his girlfriend and all this kind of stuff, and maybe thinking about going back to school, there's no actual change coming at any point in time. It's like, this is today, this is going to be tomorrow, this is going to be the day after. Yeah. Whereas Clerks 2 is like, this is today, tomorrow's going to be completely different. And you're like, what? And that's what actually happens within the movies, that today was one day and the next day was completely different, but they showed the next day. And I think that's the thing that kind of made it work.
The only thing that I think bothers me about Clerks 2 rewatching it now is that there was an opportunity. So Randall is always painted as the fuck up. Dante is painted as the level-headed guy, but in the end, they're both kind of miserable, and they're both kind of fuck-ups. I actually kind of
disagree with that. Like, I think Randall isn't portrayed as the fuck-up. I think Randall is portrayed as mischievous.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. He knows exactly what he's doing. That's the thing with Randall. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he's not accidentally fucking anything. Yeah. He's fucking with shit. But
and Dante, though. Dante is the character that makes me angry the most in the series, because he is portrayed as, I'm the nice guy, why are these horrible things happening to me? But he is a horrible individual. He's the worst kind of person.
I was talking to my partner Lisa when we were watching it, and going like, well, Dante has a hot fiancée who genuinely loves him. She's probably a little bit controlling, but he's also a fucking wimp. So it works well. He's got a whole life ahead of him, and he cheats on his wife and impregnates another person, and we're supposed to feel sympathy for him as a character. And you're like, no, you're just an absolute asshole.
But that's what he did in the first Clerks movie as well. He's got a, when Jay comes in and was just like, what are you doing? Like, Jay, the stoner that's on the corner, he's like, you have a hot girlfriend who wants to take care of you and make your life better. She brings you lunches and she checks up on you all day to make sure you're okay. But you decide that you want to go on a date with some girl who cheated on you 8.5 times while you were together in high school that you have a slight crush on.
Yep.
It makes no sense, because he's like, no, I'm a good guy. Bad things keep happening to me. I'm like, no, it's because you are the one who's making bad decisions. And just like Randall says later on, he's just like, yeah, I was going to do something, but then you decided you wanted to do it too. That's not my fault. That's your fault.
Exactly.
And it's true.
Yeah, the name Caitlin Bree comes up so many times in the animated series. I think my big problem with the animated series is they didn't know if they were making an actual animated series about Clerks, or if they were making off-the-wall adventures. It's like, let me get this straight. You want a down-to-earth cartoon with wizards and off-the-wall adventures? Yes. Okay. It was just poochy.
It was Poochie. Oh my god.
That's what it felt like.
Yes. Well, that's like, because I don't think I've watched this animated series since I bought the DVD, which probably would have been like maybe like a year after it was on TV or something, because they wanted to recoup money. And I, like you, remembered enjoying it. Whereas this time where I watched it, I just sat there with this confused look on my face the whole time going, what is happening?
Yeah.
I don't understand what is going on exactly, you know? And it's like, because like they had the episode where they went to this mega mall that was like taking over or whatever. But instead of making it just look like a mall, they made it look like a weird spaceship with hover cars. And I was like, where are you going with this exactly? Like, I don't understand. You can have evil guys, you can have big fancy things or whatever, but you went from 1 to 1,000,000 instead of 1 to 2. You know? Yeah. It was odd.
There were some fun throwaways, like the idea that they're reading letters to them about lack of female representation in the show, and they're just completely just dismissive of the entire idea, and they're like, wait, you know what? We should have some representation, and they create Lando. The only black name they can think of is Lando. Yep. I'm like, that's pretty funny and stupid, and the fact that he just walks by and says hello and then leaves and never gives advice to them is just, I thought that was a pretty good stroke of genius and held up pretty well.
It did hold up pretty well, yes.
And the whole, I think, I still quote the Mayor McCheese section of that same episode, the quarantine, or no, it's the second episode where Lando comes back. But the town gets quarantined because Randall calls in, thinks that this monkey has brought bites Mr. Leonardo and has some kind of like Ebola virus type thing. So they quarantine that section of town. And James Woods arrives as an DEA agent or whatever, the CDC. Yeah. It's like some CDC agent, and has to incubate them. They're all going to die or whatever. And the mayor gives a speech. The mayor of Leonardo, wearing a Mayor McCheese outfit, and he's like, "I want to remind you that I was on my way to a costume party, and I did not have time to change out." And people are asking, and then it cuts to the chief of police giving a speech dressed as Officer Big Mac. He's like, "Now look, like the mayor, I was on my way to a costume party, but funny enough, it was a completely different party. Any questions?" And people asking about will the Hamburglar ever be brought to justice? Could the disease kill the grimace? And nothing can kill the grimace. Just some stupid throwaway McDonald's lines are pretty funny. But I think if they remade it today, as you said, they remade it today and grounded it in something, I think it could hit.
Yes, oh, for sure. Because I think we're very used to, at this point, cynical TV shows. If they went fully the way of, BoJack Horseman, for example.
Yes.
Where, BoJack Horseman is in a weird animal-people world hybrid, whatever. But if they went straight up modern times, they're here, they're just mean, cynical people, it'd be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it would just evoke, it would have the same spirit as Daria.
Yes. Yeah, that kind of sarcastic, meanness.
And we can't talk about Clerks without addressing the elephant in the room. The sheer number of times watching this that I had to see the name Harvey Weinstein literally everywhere was just appalling.
Yes. Unfortunately, that's something we have to bear for a lot of older movies.
Well, and honestly, the Weinstein Company was built around the success of Clerks. Harvey Weinstein was moderately successful prior to Clerks, but the first film's massive success on home release and even its theatrical run bolstered that whole company. And so you can't really separate the franchise from it. Yeah. Kevin Smith has come out and made a statement saying that any of the profits that he would generate from Clerks as a brand is being donated to, I believe it's a survivor's assault charity. Oh. He's basically making, because you can't stop the brand from existing, right?
Yes, it's out there already.
So he's making lemonade from lemons. Although there is still talks now of a Clerks 3.
I remember a couple of years ago he posted a thing, front page of a script, Clerks 3, something he was working on. But I think possibly this whole Weinstein thing, and he was just like, maybe I'm not going to do that anymore because he doesn't want to generate more money for it.
Yeah.
But my question is when it comes to that kind of stuff, like, so he just did the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, which works in part of this world.
Yeah, the Mewes universe, as they call it.
But, like, is that like separated or is that together? Does that make Clerks money? Like, I always wonder how that kind of
I actually think
works.
that it's possible that even Clerks 3 itself, if they do make it, would be divorced from the Weinstein Company because they, usually when these things are done, the author owns the intellectual property rights. So the person who created and wrote the concept owns the IP unless they overtly sell it. Now, given that Jay and Silent Bob have appeared in so many different ways, it's obvious that he didn't sell those characters because I don't think Chasing Amy was produced by the Weinstein Company. It might have been, but I don't think Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was.
Okay.
And now there's like video games with Jay and Silent Bob coming out this year, the Blunt Man and Chronic game.
Yeah, they've also got a weed line.
They do have a weed line. So I think that the IP is divorced, but there's probably a provision in there for numbered sequels.
Yeah, probably.
It's like what happened with the creator of Child's Play. Oh my gosh. His name is eluding me. Child's Play, I don't know if you know, there's that crazy thing that happened this year where a Child's Play... So they've been making Child's Play movies nonstop since the 80s. Like Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, Cult of Chucky.
1988.
Yeah. And the creator has been making and spearheading these films. And the success of those films caused the studio to reboot the original Child's Play because they owned the rights to the name Child's Play. Which is why all the sequels he's produced were called Of Chucky or Something of Chucky. Because he owned the rights to the intellectual property he created, but not the trademark to the word Child's Play.
Oh, so are you talking about Don Mancini?
Don Mancini, yes. So and he, so when they rebooted Child's Play this year with Mark Hamill, he was very elegant about it. He just posted a thing on Twitter being like, I don't know who that is. And that was his only response. Like, I don't know what that is to the film. Never hasn't disparaged it publicly, but he's working on a Chucky series for Showtime, I think.
Don Mancini? Or...
Yeah, Don Mancini.
Oh, okay.
That's coming out this year, so the IP is just fractured because they decided, because they own the rights to the name. So it could be that the name Clerks is owned by the Weinstein Company and they're rebooting it without Kevin, or I don't know. It's a weird limbo situation.
Yeah, that's the problem with contracts and these movie things and the separation of properties and title rights and all that kind of stuff, because those things can get mixed up and they go crazy. I mean,
Friday the 13th is going through lawsuits right now about it. It actually is supposed to be settled in February, so we'll find out the final decision on... The person who wrote the first Friday the 13th movie is claiming ownership over the franchise.
Okay.
Because a different person took over from 2 onwards.
Yeah.
But the first film doesn't have Jason in it.
No, it doesn't.
It's barely recognizable as a Friday the 13th film. And so the argument being made in court is, well, while you created the name Friday the 13th and like the setting, as it were, the real meat and potatoes, the thing that people know it for, has nothing to do with what you created.
Yeah.
So that's the current dispute that's going on, and we'll find out soon.
Wait, that is Jason, isn't it? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm very bad with horror movies because I don't really watch them very often, so I get them very confused. Because Friday the 13th and it's Jason and Mike Myers. Those are the two I get.
Yeah, that's Halloween.
Halloween. Yeah. That's it. Okay. Yeah.
Bring it back to Clerks. It's funny because I would always say Clerks was, when I was younger, I would describe the Clerks series of movies as like the films that say things that nobody else would say in a film. And yeah, I think that still holds true. Some of it, I think, is just like angry white dude yelling at screen. Yes,
very much so. Don't worry.
It hasn't aged terribly well, and I feel like as I become, old, now that I'm trending towards my middle age and I am way more emotionally balanced as a human, I look at it and go like, oh, I get it. You were just really angry and disaffected when you wrote this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you want to talk about lack of representation that they made fun of in the cartoon. If you look at Clerks, it's so bad for that. Like, because the whole main cast is white, of course. There's no people of color, as far as I remember, show up on screen at any point in time.
In the first Clerks, no, not at all.
And all of the women that even have words in the movie all they're obsessed with is the men that they were there to talk to.
And they're all just sex objects.
And they're all just sex objects. And you're just like, because that was the thing that struck me about it, because I was like, oh, that was one of the things that made the difference. I was like, oh yeah, angry white guy movie, gotcha. Yeah. But I mean, some of the things that happens and says and does in this movie are universal,
of course,
things and things that people talk about, and kind of it's fun to watch a movie where two friends sit around talking about complete nonsense, because that's what I do 95% of the time I'm with my friends. Yep. Because that's what you do. It's fun.
And, like, there's, you know, I don't think there is such thing as a sacred cow. And I don't think, like, you know, in the context of two people shooting the shit and talking, there's kind of nothing really terribly verboten. But the dialogue does tend to lean homophobic nowadays, looking back at it. And it does lean pretty bro-y, which is ironic considering they're the least bros of bros, as, like, if you were to take a step back and look how lame those characters are.
Yeah.
But the dialogue does read a bit...
but that's Randall's insecurity.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 95% of that, like, the homophobic chat and the broness comes from Randall, you know, calling somebody gay and somebody fag and somebody this. And, you know, and Dante going, what the fuck is your problem? How does that do that? And then he goes off on a rant about something, you know? And you're just like... I get it, but that doesn't work right now, so we're gonna not.
The greatest part of Clerks 2, having rewatched it now, though, is Wanda Sykes. That I had forgotten just how funny that scene was.
Yeah.
The dialogue, like, interplay between Wanda Sykes and her husband wanting to grab the food, and she's like, no, I don't want to eat food produced by a racist. And he's like, I'll eat the food. It's fine. The food's not racist. You can't taste the racism. And like,
you could just swap that in for Chick-fil-A right now. That's
it
fine.
is. It was so funny.
Because it's really funny, because people are just like, no, Chick-fil-A's delicious. But they're racist and homophobic. But their chicken's good. You're just like, okay. Yeah. Also, so there's recently been a Chick-fil-A opened in Toronto.
Yeah, it's on
It's down by the Eaton Centre.
Yeah.
I have no interest, and I haven't gone in there. But every time I pass by it, it's filled with people. I'm like, all right.
We had this office debate that kind of felt like an excerpt from Clerks. Clerks and I look back at it. We were talking about, like, well, none of us want to support Chick-fil-A. But people keep talking up the sandwich. So how do you acquire a Chick-fil-A sandwich without supporting them? Because I refuse. I will not spend $1 at this establishment.
But what if somebody you know happened to buy one and was like, hey, do you want a bite?
Yes, because at that point I haven't supported the sandwich is there, right? Like to not eat it is basically just to waste food at that point. It's being inherently wasteful. Because like the sandwich isn't cursed. Right?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know how they make their sandwiches. So,
but it's like, you know, at that point, I would try it, but then we have the quandary of if it literally is the best chicken sandwich I've had in my life. Like if it moves heaven and earth itself, right?
Clouds part, new sun opens.
Now I have a moral dilemma, right? Because like, okay, it's a fucking chicken sandwich. I can get a better one at Popeyes, or I can get that's fine. But if suddenly I am cursed with the knowledge that this sandwich is that fucking good, and I'm like, okay, well, now I can never have that again unless like somebody buys one and gives me a bite because I have a very strong ethical line about it.
Yeah.
I think it'd just be cursing myself. So I wouldn't take the bite. That's where I came to. I would not take the bite because if it was so good, then I know I would never really have that experience again and I'd be deprived of it.
Yes, that's true. You'd just be depriving yourself of a great joy.
Yeah. Meanwhile, ignorance is bliss, and I don't have to support a bunch of, like, you know, homophobic assholes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Because I don't know why. Like, I walk by and, I mean, I do have, like, a moral issue with them. I do. But usually when it comes to food, I like to eat food. I eat food. That's it. You know? So usually that's not, unless it's something very expensive, I don't care. Right? I'll spend my $3 whatever, and I'm like, okay, walk away. But this time I walked by them, I was like, no, that's just not a thing.
Well, I think we're lucky that we're spoiled for choice in Toronto with some of the best food in the world. Like,
we really are.
Of any ethnicity and any origin you can imagine, we have it here. So, like, yeah, I mean, I could spend $7 at Chick-fil-A, or I could go across the street and get some amazing Korean food.
Yes, like, that's true. Yeah.
Well,
I'm going to go across the street. Thank you very much, you know. And especially in that block where they're located, there is so much stuff from fast food to franchises to high dining within that like one block. So I'm like, I don't want Chick-fil-A. I don't want that. And even like there's a Five Guys there. I have no moral issue with them. That's not the thing. But I went in there once to buy a burger and fries, and a burger and fries was coming up to like $17, and I'm like, I can get a really good meal.
Yeah.
That's not burger and fries for that kind of money.
Yep.
You know? So I'm like,
true.
so I've never had Five Guys, for example. So I mean it really is like a balance out, like how happy is my mouth gonna be compared to how much money I'm gonna spend.
True. So, on the Clerks subject, watching the animated series, I noticed that there's an episode where they go to like a faux Comic-Con and they give a panel, and the panel is complaining that the audience is complaining that they're not down to earth and they've gone off the wall and they don't represent what the Clerks originally stood for. And one of the guys who's asking a question is wearing a Mewes shirt, which is the burger franchise in Clerks 2.
Yes.
Had Mewes been mentioned prior?
Didn't Dogma come out before Clerks 2?
Yes, it did.
So
actually,
hold on. But I don't know what year Dogma came out. Dogma was 1999, so yes. So movies would have been a reference.
Okay. So it was basically straight off the production of Dogma. They started the animated series and then made a reference to that. Yeah, I find it bizarre how eerily internally consistent Kevin Smith's productions are.
Yes.
Like, even down to Dante painting Rosario Dawson's toes from an offhand line that he's good at painting toes.
Yeah, but he also paints the fingernails of his girlfriend in Clerks.
Yeah.
And it's true. He's very good at picking out really small consistencies through whole things that, that are stuff that people could just drop at some point in time. But even in like the Clerks movie, every 10 minutes or so, he's like, it smells like shoe polish. And it's so stupid, but it's so funny at the same time because it's just this one consistent thread to remind you this is the same fucking day this nonsense is happening. And I think small details like that is what make, especially comedy, is what makes things really, really good.
And I mean, I think what makes Clerks, or made it work, even with the poor aging that the series has had, is that it was really just written like a series of vignettes. It's written like a sketch comedy show where the characters are internally consistent, right? So like, we don't talk about the plot of Clerks. We talk about the scenes in Clerks.
Yes.
Like, you talk about the cigarette salesman, the gum salesman rather. Right?
Sorry, yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. He was, which
salesman.
I thought was hilarious, actually.
And you talk about 37 Dicks. You talk about Berserker.
Yeah.
Those are not things that particularly happened. They're just vignettes.
Yeah.
And same thing in Clerks too. There's the Lord of the Rings lambasting.
Yeah.
Which I still laugh at. I think that's hilarious. Like the walking. Here's what happens in the first film. Just walks. Second film walks. Third film walks. Drops the ring. And
walks away.
The pickle fucker. Like everything's just broken down into these little vignettes of things that happen. And I think that's what made it work.
Yeah. Well, I think too. It's like it works like how people remember their day going, right? You don't remember point A to point B to point C to point D. You remember, this thing happened, and then this thing happened, and then this thing happened. And that's why, and I agree with you, that I think that's one of the reasons why Clerks works, is because you see the mundaneness, but you see the interest in the mundaneness, but you don't see the connecting points, because those connecting points aren't necessary, right? But you just need the reminder of a timeline happening, which he sprinkles throughout.
Exactly. I also didn't remember there being so many musical montages in Clerks 2 as there are. There's the bumper car scene. Yeah. Or the go-kart scene, rather.
Go-kart scene, yeah.
And there's Jay's Goodbye Horses, Buffalo Bill scene. Which
is disturbing.
It's fantastic. Then there's the weird Jackson 5 ABC dance instruction where Rosario Dawson's teaching him to dance on the roof.
Yeah.
But for some reason the entire community is doing a musical number dance. Yeah. There's just a lot of musical montages in Clerks 2.
Yeah.
I guess you can count the donkey show as a part of one too.
I guess I don't want to, but I guess you can.
That's a fun series of events in that film, though. Like, just in terms of fun pacing, calling the fire department, rushing in, being surprised with the donkey show, forgetting he called the fire department, the confluence of just disasters, and like it almost feels like a Looney Tunes or a Marx Brothers film with that
kind of thing going on there. Yeah, I mean, Kevin Smith is of course, like a Hollywood person who's also obsessed with film. So I wouldn't be surprised if his references and his to writing some of the stuff he puts in there does come from something like that. You know what I mean? Because even like there's slapstick in there and stuff that's clearly like the Three Stooges and all that kind of stuff, and very what do you call it? Situational comedy that's like kind of like not situational, but more observant, like, you know, like Seinfeld comedy. Yeah. Like, what's the deal with airplane food? Like, it's that, you know, it's that kind of comedy stuff thrown in there. But then he also manages to throw in those like notes that touch the heart and all that kind of stuff. So it makes the comedy not just a throwaway, but something that actually does something.
I also did like the bit in Clerks 2 where at the very end, Jay and Silent Bob buy them a new Quick Stop. And they're like, where'd you get the money to do this? And Jay's response is, why does nobody remember that they made a movie about us?
Yeah.
Because Jay and Silent, like the canon of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is that there's a Blunt Man and Chronic movie that they are suing for likeness rights for. Yeah. And they end up winning and getting paid out from the film.
A crap load of movies.
And then like it's not touched on at all again in Clerks 2, except for that very end bit there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because I guess it's not really part of this story that's being told.
Yeah,
right?
Well, I mean, they are there. And the entire time I was watching Clerks 2 for the first time, I was like, but aren't they, like, fucking extremely wealthy now? Why would they be selling drugs outside? Well, then I'm like, wait a minute, no. What else do they know how to do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, once you get a whole crap load of money, you can do whatever the fuck you want. True. So why go get a job? You know, the thing I like about Clerks 2 in the end, that they just end up owning the Quick Stop and they make it their own thing. For a lot of people, it would be considered like, why would you want to do that? That's pointless. Why don't you want to be a lawyer? Why don't you want to be a doctor? Why don't you want to be like, you know, quote unquote a status job, right? But one thing that they find out in this movie is just like, I don't want to do shit.
Yeah.
You know, I want to make enough money that I'm not broke, but I also don't want to do anything. Yeah. And this was the point in time where I got to do that and do whatever I wanted to do. And this is the thing that makes me happy. And people's happy places are in different areas or different points in their life or whatever. And I mean, me working at a Quick Stop, not my greatest idea, but for them, within the context of this world, that's the thing that makes them happy. That's the place they want to be. Let them do it. Yep. You know?
And I'm sure that there's not an insignificant number of, like, actual stories or pastiches of his real friends growing up that live in Dante and Randall. Like, I'm sure that they are caricatures of his friend circle growing up in like, suburban New Jersey. And I'm sure even, like, his buddies who own that comic shop that he does the podcast with, I'm sure that they kind of have a bit of Dante and Randall in them. Like, they're not... You know, they're famous now because of Kevin Smith. Yeah. But if Kevin Smith wasn't famous, they'd still probably just be selling comics out of their comic shop.
Well,
right?
yeah, I mean, their fame came from when he decided to do Comic Book Men. Like, people went to, like, the comic book store they worked at and met them, sure, but they weren't famous. Yeah. But as soon as he put them on TV, they quote-unquote became famous. But it's so clear that even with their fame, they're like, can I go back to the comic book store? Yeah. You know, you see them in interviews, you see them even like on the actual like Comic Book Men show, you see them on tour together, they're doing press junkets, and they're just like, I just like selling comic books. Yeah. I just kind of happen to be here now.
They're not Pawn Stars, you know?
Like, no. Like, they're not trying to get out of that world. They're like, I like comic books. I like everything to do with that world and made up fantasy. I like the art. I like talking to people about it. That's just what I want to do. Yeah. And working in a comic book store allows me to do this thing. Yeah. And yeah, I make more money now. So now my wife has a bigger house and whatever, but I just want to go back to the comic book store.
Yep, and I think that perfectly captures the ennui of living in like a suburbia, and also the idea of, you know, you don't have to be exceptional. Like, you know, it's the idea that like parents pushed like the boomer generation and the greatest generation push is that like you need to do something with your life.
Yeah.
But if you're happy just existing, if that's where you derive your happiness, then go for it, right?
But is it really doing something with your life, or is it the whole idea that you have to be, what do you call it? Like, not famous, but like there's definitely statuses in our society where if you have a job that's below a specific status, you've wasted your life.
Yeah.
And then if you have a job that's above a certain status, you have made it.
Yeah, it's really it's this weird arbitrary line like, oh, are you a lawyer? Well then, congratulations. You have done fantastic. Are you a janitor? Well, what are you wasting your life on? It's like, why the fuck are we making that distinction? And the only distinction there is money.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck that shit.
Yeah, I remember I had, it wasn't really an argument, but it was a bunch of friends who were together and we were talking about, you know, relationships and all that kind of stuff. And a friend of mine brought up the fact that he was so grossed out that his friend was dating a guy who's a postman. And I was like, what the fuck? Okay. But the thing that really bothered him is like, no, you don't understand. He doesn't want to do anything but be a postman. He likes being a postman. How can you date somebody like that? And I'm like, but what's wrong with being a postman? Like, I don't... Like, if you're happy, you're making good money, you're getting by in life. Not just getting by, but I mean, you know, you are doing something you want to do. You're doing the thing that makes you happy, and you have all you need. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
You know, and we had this huge, like, half the room was like, yeah, what a waste of time being a postman. And the other half was just like, there's nothing wrong with being a postman. And I was on that side.
Yeah, and I think it's funny, people have no idea what happens at jobs too. Sometimes the jobs they don't do. So for example, most people look down at the job of like a mover, like moving, like it's the same thing. Like, oh, you're dating a guy who's a mover. My girlfriend works in film. She works for the set decoration department. So it sounds glamorous and awesome. She works on American Gods and on Star Trek Discovery and some of these other shows. But she describes her job. She's like, I'm an overglorified mover. Like today, I'm moving a sofa. Today, I'm going to drive a forklift in a warehouse to get a box off a shelf, to unpack that box, and move it to another set. Yeah. Like, I'm not doing anything terribly crazy. I am just a glorified mover.
Yeah, but her job has a title, so it's fine. But mover, that's so...
it's a weird, like... It's a classist thing left over from post-war anxieties, and I think a lot of that comes from, the previous generations wanting better for our generations, but not actually.
Yeah, but like
better's arbitrary.
Exactly, and technically the last two generations, because of the society that was created by the boomers, we are actually doing worse. Than they are, and it's the first set of generations that are in that situation, right? Because of economic downfall, because of wars, because of like we technically have access to everything that we need, but everything is incredibly expensive, which puts many people below poverty lines, things like that, and it's crazy.
And I think like the simplest solution to all of it, that like the reason the boomers were able to succeed was because the generation before them stepped away. And the boomers then had to do the things, fill the roles. But boomers want us to be, you know, they always say they chastise Gen Xers and millennials for being lazy and not having great jobs. The boomers haven't retired from the jobs that they're in.
And they won't let us get those jobs either.
They haven't they haven't vacated those spots. In fact, they're still just siphoning away the money. Yeah. And that's... Like so many of these problems just come from them still being there.
But also one of those reasons because they can't retire. Right? Yeah. Because there is they don't have retirement funds. They don't have savings because there wasn't anywhere to save money, you know? And as, you know, the time has gone on, it's got more and more expensive. And then they're yelling at their kids, why aren't you making more money to support me? And you're just like, because I can't get a job. Because you guys still have all the fucking jobs.
Yeah, it's a horrible, like, self-fulfilling prophecy.
It is. It really, really is. So, Yeah, so that's why we still understand the complaining in Clerks.
Yeah. So think about Clerks. Now, if Clerks 3 is in the works still, do you think the world needs a Clerks 3?
No.
I also agree. Because they're going to be, like, think about it. The actors must be pushing 50.
Yeah.
So, like probably between 47 and 50 for both Dante and Randall.
Yeah. Well, the characters in Clerks, they were supposed to be 22.
And in Clerks 2, they are 33 because Randall makes a point of saying, I'm 33. Okay. Or Dante says, you're 33 years old, Randall. Okay. So that is, it has been 14 years. So yeah, so they'd be so they were probably going off the actor's age. Yeah. 47, 48. So yeah, like, what do two 48-year-olds who run a convenience store...
That is their own.
Like, they don't have a boss to complain about. The man isn't keeping them down anymore. They achieved the boomer dream at the end of Clerks 2.
Technically, yeah.
So what is Clerks 3 going to be about?
That is the question. Maybe it's going to be one of those things where it's about their kids. Just like Bill and Ted that's coming out. Like, it's about their kids. It's not about them anymore, you know? Or it's going to be about how, you know, Rosario Dawson's character, which I don't remember now. Becky leaves Dante because she realized he is a dick and walks out on him or something like that, and that's the big turnaround. His life's falling apart again, and so he's now got something new to complain about. Yeah. And Randall's gonna be sitting there going, "Yeah, you did this to your fucking self, moron." And then that's
or maybe they move to Canada, and Clerks 3 is both the conclusion of the Clerks trilogy and also the conclusion of his weird Canada trilogy.
Oh, but maybe you find out that they're actually expanded and he's the owner of I didn't see Yoga Hosers, but I know it takes place in a convenience store, but it turns out Dante's the owner of that convenience store. Yeah. You know? So there's all the connections in there. It's part of the same world.
Yoga Hosers was terrible.
Okay, look, I saw the trailer, they had, Nazi sausages, and I was like, I'm not looking at this.
Bratzies, they call them.
Bratzies, okay. I could not bring myself to look at that. I mean, I looked at Tusk, and I was surprised how good that movie was.
I enjoyed Tusk quite a bit.
Except for the last, 2 minutes, which kind of, ruined it. I was like, why? This scene is not necessary. Yeah. But that whole movie is creepy and uncomfortable and really well acted, and I was shocked.
It was basically a one-act play, which I really liked. Very few sets, other than establishing sets. Yeah. And the acting was fantastic. The writing was great, and everything was on point about Tusk, which is why I think I was so angry about Yoga Hosers, because I thought we were witnessing a new Kevin Smith who is broadening his horizons. Oh, I mean...
But we also saw that with Red State as well, which was touted as a horror movie, which I don't understand why.
Don't get that either.
Because I didn't watch it for a long time because I was like, I don't want to watch a horror movie. And the trailers for it made it seem really kind of violent, which it wasn't when I watched it. And it's more of a sort of suspensey thriller kind of thing with a couple of dark notes to it. And fine. I get it. But it was really well done, really well written, and everything. And then I saw the trailer for Yoga Hosers, and I was like, what the shit is this?
To be cynical, I think Yoga Hosers was just an attempt for a vehicle for his and Johnny Depp's daughter to be in a movie together.
To be in a movie together? But they could have done something better than that.
Yeah. But I mean, and I think in the vein of, let's get to high school age girls to play high school age girls doing wacky things. I think I think that it was probably a movie that was developed by riffing off of ideas. And what if they do this? And then what if this happens? Yeah. And I'm sure it was just a passion project that went off the rails.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. At some point in time, I'm definitely going to watch it, but at the same time, every time I think about it, I'm like, oh, God. Yeah. You know, I just don't know if I can handle that level of idiocy. Yeah. Yeah. There's always a line. There's a line I hit sometimes where I'm just like, ugh.
Man, speaking of things that really creeped me out that didn't when I first watched the film, watching Clerks 2 and Randall going on and on about the 17-year-old girls that he wants to bang who come into the establishment.
Yeah, no,
talking about, barely legal pussy, and you're like, oh wow.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Just a 33-year-old man. If he was if the characters were the age they were in Clerks, and they were talking about it,
it would still not be nice, but it'd be less uncomfortable.
It would be just like an average bro thing to say, and not a preying upon the youth thing to say. And like, yeah, in Clerks 2, it's a lot worse.
Yeah, but I think that goes with Dazed and Confused.
Yes.
Because especially like a lot of movies sort of keep going back to Matthew McConaughey's line, you know, I love high school. I love high school girls because I get older and they stay the same age, right? And it is, every time I hear it and every time I think about it, it gets grosser and grosser and grosser, right? And I think that's exactly what this is. It's just saying the same thing in a different way. But the way Matthew McConaughey said it, everybody's like, oh, that's cool. And then way random stuff, you're like, that's gross. But I'm like, if you think about it, they're saying exactly the same thing.
I also think society, we've gotten, rightfully so, a lot less tolerant about that kind of, like, preying upon the youth.
Yes, behavior, yes, for sure. Because we've seen what it does to people, and we've seen what it does to our society and all that kind of stuff. And it's not a good place to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sweet. What else is there to say about Clerks? I mean, in a way, we're all either a Dante, a Randall, a Jay, or a Silent Bob. It's the four archetypes.
So? I mean,
I don't think so.
Sure.
I don't think that's true.
That can't be. I really can't be true because I'm sitting here going, "Oh my god, which one am I?"
Silent Bob's got the best monologues ever.
Yes.
Like he is the best character. And of course, Kevin Smith is just self-inserting himself into the film. He's the author's voice. But like, you know, that like the monologue in jail is a great scene in Clerks 2.
Yes, it is.
And it's literally, I mean, it's ham-fisted because it's Kevin Smith literally beating the viewer over the head with the thesis of his movie. And he has a unfortunate penchant of doing that. Like,
yeah, but I think it's because he knows his audience.
Yes.
Despite the fact that I think we two are quite intellectual individuals and whatever. I'm not saying we're above people or anything. But his movies, especially this set of movies, are really aimed at the stoner crowd who want...
Yes. Even
though the jokes are, you know, quick and all that kind of stuff, he's not pointing at the smartest people in the room to, hey, look at this, right? He's looking for the mid-ground kind of dumb people to look at it. But if you're, you know, you can be an intellectual and still enjoy this kind of stuff, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
So, and I think one of the reasons why he is smacking people over the head of it, because he knows his audience isn't necessarily the smartest people in the room.
Yeah, and like Kevin Smith is the kind of guy who will write a movie that simultaneously waxes poetically about the value of relationships and change and societal impact and like reflection upon yourselves. Also talking about donkey dicks, you know, like it's so I understand. Yeah, he probably does have to really bash the audience over the head just to get the thing back on track.
Yes. Yeah, he needs to move things back over. Don't forget, this is what I'm actually talking about. While that guy's dancing dirty in the background.
Yeah.
We're gonna see how that goes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that makes Clerks is the fact that, you know, they were clerks and they had to put up with customers coming in and stupid questions and all that kind of stuff. And I must admit, the one montage they had about complaining about the customers coming in, I really still connect with.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't worked in retail in a very, very long time. But at the same time, I still remember those moronic or obnoxious or frustrating interactions that you'd get a slew of them every single day.
They never leave you. It's always there in the back of your mind.
They're always there in the back of your mind. I mean, did you work in retail at any point?
Briefly.
Yeah. So
I did fast food stuff. So,
fast food. Oh, that
seems
seems
torturous.
torturous.
Resonates a little bit
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was my like my. Thankfully, not a lot of front of house stuff, but still, idiots are idiots everywhere, and everyone bitches about the idiot customers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, you can always tell a person who has never worked in retail by how they interact with retail staff, whether it's fast food or clothing or trinkets or whatever. It's, you know, the quote unquote the Debbies.
Yeah.
You know,
the Karens.
And the Karens, they've never worked in retail. That's why they act like that.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't know. I just found it I just found it hilarious because for a long time I worked at a bookstore, and people were just like, "Oh, that must be an easy job." I'm like, no. You would be surprised.
I can imagine. I walk into BMV and I see the sheer like volume of customers there and go, "Oh my god, these poor employees."
Yeah. I mean, you have people who come in who are looking for... I saw on TV this book that's like purple and had gold writing, and they're just like, I'm gonna need some more than that, guys.
An author, a title, a genre.
Yeah, it's just something. I could point you to an area, but I just need more than a purple book with gold writing.
The purple book section's around the corner, but it's hard to narrow it down.
One of my worst yet favorite interactions was I opened the bookstore one day. We opened at 10, and as soon as we opened, a guy walked in. Went straight to the sci-fi section, which is fine. I love sci-fi.
Yeah.
He's in there all the time, whatever. Didn't see him for a while, walked past, and we saw like piles of books on the floor, and we're just like, what is going on? He was very angry that all of our Star Trek books were not in the correct order, and he took it upon himself to rearrange the Star Trek books. But that's when I actually paid attention to what he was wearing. He was wearing like a red, what do you call it, like windbreaker that had a whole bunch of like Star Trek patches on one side, especially Klingon patches. And I was like, okay, so this is gonna be fun. So yeah, I sat with him for like an hour and a half talking Star Trek as I let him do it, because I was just like, sure. There was nothing I can do about it.
But now you'll always have the story of Star Trek guy. Kapla, good friend.
Kapla, yes. He probably thought it was a patak or whatever, but that's fine. That's right. We know Klingon. It's okay.
On this podcast, we're well learned.
And the other thing I wanted to say about that montage as well is, so, you know, every time they cut to Randall in the video store and there was like, there was a customer against the wall, I paused at one point because I was thinking, oh, it's probably going to be like fake movies that are in the background or whatever. Oh no, they had all real movie covers and titles on that wall.
I bet you because they wouldn't have thought to Greek out those titles because they didn't think the movie was going to go anywhere.
Oh, probably. Yeah. Probably. But I wonder what sort of like backlash there was against that with like companies.
Probably nothing. I feel like none of the movies were terribly like front and center.
But they were so clear.
Yeah.
They were so clear. And like they weren't, some of them were smaller movies, but some of them were relatively big movies. I mean, there was A League of Their Own, Under Siege, Basic Instinct, Encino Man.
Oh man. Class. Wait, you're telling me Encino Man came out before Clerks?
Apparently.
Wow.
I know, right? Doesn't that make you feel...
Makes me feel like I was frozen in ice and then thawed and I'm Brendan Fraser now.
Encino Man was 1992!
Oh my god.
Jeez. Yes, okay. So, yeah. That was before. Jeez.
I'm just sad Brendan Fraser never made it into Kevin Smith's View Askew-universe. Him and Pauly Shore would have fit right in.
I don't know, actually.
Yeah, probably
I think Brendan Fraser, yes. Pauly Shore, no. I don't think so.
Pauly Shore and Jay and Silent Bob in their like Poochie-like adventures.
Oh my god, maybe. Actually, no. If Pauly Shore showed up in one of the Jay and Silent Bob movies as like a character in one of their movies, that would work. Totally down for that. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's what else is there to say about Clerks? I think my final thesis on Clerks is it is not a movie that has aged terribly, or series that has aged terribly well. I think if the young people would, like people of the next generation, the Gen Zers and all that, were to go watch it, I think there'd be a lot of problematic rants about it on the internet about how problematic it is.
Sure.
And I don't disagree. There are things in that are best left in the past. But it's a time capsule.
It is.
And it represents the feelings and sentiments of the late 80s, early 90s. Like, it's so perfectly crystallized.
Yeah, and also in their horrid fashion as well. Which
God,
every time somebody walked in a door, I was like, oh my god, what are you wearing? That's all I kept thinking. But it's true. If you have never seen Clerks before and you go to watch for the first time, you're going to be offended.
Yeah.
Or disgusted.
I will say, like, I think, you know, it's great that people who are in their late teens, early 20s nowadays actually have like a way to channel their adolescent rage into something productive. Like, there's a lot more things you can do in terms of being proactive in politics and proactive in things out there. But in 1994 or 93, if you're 20 or 19 and you're just angry at the world,
you got nothing.
You can do. Like, the internet wasn't a thing.
Nope.
You didn't have resources. You could just
you still had to go to the library to look stuff up.
And so you just kind of acted out in your small town and vented with your buddies and pissed off customers of your local Blockbuster, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the adolescent rage of the 90s is a very specific time capsule. And I think it while Dante and Randall aren't adolescents in Clerks, they might as well be.
It's true. I mean, and especially the fact that one of their spaces that they were using within there was a video store really does overall like age the film no matter what, right? Because I mean, if it was like I don't know, like a Quick Stop and like a Radio Shack where we sold batteries. Sure, we still get batteries now, whatever. Yeah. There's no Radio Shacks, but still.
I like that was your first example of a Radio Shack, not like a Best Buy or something.
No, that's not going to work either. But like, if you sold...
A record store.
A records, yes, that's right. Because records went out but came back in, it's fine. So it would work. But like, VHS, like, shit.
I wasn't an employee of a video store, but I was like a video store rat. Like, I was there all the time, always getting movies, always renting games.
Yeah.
And you could identify those customers in Clerks are real. Like, that's a real archetype of like, guy walks up to the counter like, I'm looking for something funny to watch tonight with my family. And it's like, what kind of movies do you like? I don't know, like funny ones? Like, sakes.
That's not helping anybody.
No, but like, these are real parodies of a real archetype that don't exist anymore.
It's true. I was watching and I'm like, you'll never see that again.
Yeah.
You're not going to see that either. You're not going to see that. Like,
also, I still think one of the Death Star rant, the employees on the Death Star rant is still one of those long-lasting tropes that'll be there forever. Like I think that conversation is pure gold.
Yes. And I loved it. So I decided to look up how much it would cost to build the Death Star. And apparently somebody's done research on this already. Right. It's mental floss. It's fine. They do all this kind of weird stuff. But apparently one was $852 quadrillion to construct.
Quadrillion.
Yes. That's I can't even imagine I can't imagine that kind of money.
Is that $1 billion or is that 1,000 billion?
Well, now I gotta look up how much a quadrillion is.
Because a trillion's 100 billion, right?
Yes.
Or is it 1,000 billion?
I think it's... No. A trillion is 1,000 billion.
Yes. So then a quadrillion is 1,000 trillion, which would be 1,000,000 billion.
1,000 raised to the power of 5, which is 10 to the 15th power.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah. So it's 10 to 15. It's not a billion. It's 100 million billion.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's a lot.
No, it is 1,000,000 billion, right? 6 plus 9 is 15. Okay, yeah, 10 to 15. Yes, it is. It is 1,000,000 billion. Math.
Mathematical.
Anyway, point is, Death Star is fucking expensive.
It is.
Where are we going to fund all this healthcare if we're building a Death Star?
Yeah, like, I mean... No, well, yeah, I don't know.
Give them all good health plans.
That's we just need to have a space dock in space and just get to work.
Well,
just get it done.
Space Force is on it. Did you see it?
In their camouflage.
In their camouflage.
Which I thought was the greatest thing ever.
Are they going to the forest moon of Endor?
Yeah, they're gonna hunt down the Ewoks, just so the Empire can take over. It's fine.
Fuck.
That's what they're gonna do, and it just kills me. And you know what's really funny about it is that technically, if Trump didn't say Space Force, people would be like, and there was like a show called Space Force, people would be fine with it. Because if you think about it, like Star Trek is kind of stupid.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Star Wars, also kind of stupid sounding. Space Force, whatever. We get over it.
Yeah.
But in this kind of situation, you're just like, this is so dumb.
Well, I also find it incredibly dumb that the only reason the Space Force is real is because so many people made fun of Trump for saying the words Space Force that he doubled down and has made it real.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if that had just been something he dotted off in a speech and no one lambasted him for it,
yeah,
I don't think the Space Force would be real by now.
Yeah, I think people would just been like, yeah, whatever.
Like, what are they gonna do? Like, we already have a Space Force. It's called NASA.
Yeah, that's the whole... And then we took the funding away from NASA because we were spending too much money on NASA. But then you went to war and took all the money back from that... took all that money to blow shit up and then put it into a new NASA called Space Force. And you're just like, this doesn't make any sense, guys.
Maybe they'll wage war on Elon Musk.
Gotta shoot his car out of space.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's up there monitoring us. It's fine.
Shit.
It's gonna come back instead of like Burger, it's gonna come back as Esla.
Esla. Yeah, oh my god, are the events of Star Trek the Motion Picture just a premonition of the Tesla car coming back?
Yeah, I would think so.
Super intelligent.
I would think so.
Yeah.
If at any point in time, please don't take this as a dare for you to do this. But if they ever redo the Star Trek motion picture, they're gonna replace Burger with Esla. I'm gonna tell you this right now.
Yeah,
it has to happen that way, or else you're just like, what? Makes no sense.
Yeah, like Esla, like you said. Like, Esla. What is this Esla?
Or what? Tella or
Tella.
T.
Yeah, Tila. To go with like V'ger.
Yeah, that's true. But it has to be in TESLA order, though.
Yeah, Tila. And starts with a T.
TELA?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yes, that makes sense, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Either way, there you go, Hollywood.
Yeah.
We'll be expecting our royalty checks.
Yeah.
Once that's produced.
Please don't do it, I beg of you. See, this is a problem. When you put ideas out there, people take it, and you're just like, no, I didn't mean for you to do it. I'm just pontificating. Michael
Bay's Star Trek the Motion Picture.
Oh, there'd be so many.
Tila.
There would be so many explosions for no reason.
There'll be just shots of Megan Fox washing a starship in the docking bay, like a shuttle. With a hose.
She's only got like a helmet on, but like a bikini.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you're still gonna die that way. You know that, right? It's fine.
Fuck.
Yes. Anyways. Clerks. Yes. So I completely agree with you. It is very much in a time capsule. It hasn't really aged as well as you would want it to because of that time capsule. But also, lots of points of it are still relevant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's worth a watch. If you prepare yourself, if you've never seen Clerks, and you aren't frozen in time from the 80s and have been just cryogenically resurrected, prepare yourself that it's going to be a little awkward and bumpy of a ride at times. Yes. A lot of slut shaming, a lot of homophobia, stuff that just doesn't really hold up today. But I think there's a nugget of good in there.
And also there's a lot of it's low production quality.
Yeah.
Yes. I sometimes forget how low the production quality of like Clerks is because, you know, Kevin Smith's been around for so long and you go back to somebody's first movie and you're just like, oh yeah, they were just learning what they were gonna do.
Yes.
Gotcha.
It's a little hard to watch at times just because of its low production quality and like he didn't really know how to film a shot or like frame things or like the hockey scene is just rough to watch.
It is.
But it's a great movie.
But also the fight at the end, which is the lamest fight, but also it was clear they didn't know how to quote unquote fake fight each other to do it, and you're just like, it just looks like a lame fake fight.
Yes.
So you're just like, oh my god, what are you doing? Yeah. So
that's my thought on Clerks. Go back and watch it. I do recommend it. I recommend the whole thing. The animated series is a fucking trip. If you want to like get really high and watch Clerks the animated series, it's probably the best way to experience it because it goes off the rails. It
does. It has a nice visual style though, which is very, very much like Clone High kind of looking.
Thick outlines.
Yeah.
Charles Barkley is just a hero for appearing in so many shorts just to get told to go away by Jay and Silent Bob.
Yes. There's a lot of fun nuggets in there.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I think makes it still worth having a look at. Like, it's not completely bad that it's completely a throwaway.
The entire trial of Jay versus Dante and the Quick Stop presided over by Judge Reinhold, and the jury entirely being comprised of the NBA All-Stars of 2000 is fantastic. Especially if you have any love for guys like Patrick Ewing and Charles Barkley and they just make some really good cracks about Patrick Ewing in there. So if you want to reminisce about late 90s in basketball, which is the last time I particularly cared about basketball.
Yeah, true, yeah.
It's a good...
like you said, basketball player names, and I'm like, oh my god, I still recognize them.
Yeah.
What?
Ain't no LeBron on this jury, that's for sure.
It's serious.
Yeah.
What? Well, yeah, I think that's it. I mean, that was a nice, deep convo about.
I think we squeezed the juice out of that lemon.
Yeah, we did. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this. And we'll have to have you back again for another in-depth discussion about some awesomely random something or other.
Yeah, we talked about the Back to the Future trilogy. Now we talked about the Clerks trilogy, if you include
quote
the
unquote,
series.
yes.
What's another trilogy?
Oh, I'll have to get you back for a trilogy of some sort.
Yeah.
I'll have to go through the list and put your name down for something.
It's gotta be something like ridiculous, like Darkman or. I love the first two Darkman films. I don't have
Darkman.
No.
I do actually have a ridiculous soft spot for the first Darkman movie.
Oh yeah, it's Sam Raimi before he formularized himself, Darkman, and it's Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
how do you...
That's his first superhero / action flick.
It's not cheating if you buy Darkman before we record the next podcast.
Technically, no.
Well, there we go.
Technically. Yeah. I have actually been warned by a couple other people who's like, I'm going to buy this movie just so you have to watch it. I'm like, oh, come on!
See, that's the new gambit of the podcast. It's like, oh, I don't have to cover that movie. Like, slips through the mailbox, mail slot.
Son of a bitch! Yes. Well, I guess that's it for this episode of Off My Shelf. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
Until next time, you can follow along on Instagram and Twitter at ohmyshelf, or you can send an email to ohmyshelf@gmail.com. On the next episode, we'll be talking about the movies Closer and comic book villains. Hope you'll be here to listen.